The Halli Casser-Jayne Show airs Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. The podcast's always available online at hallicasserjayne.com. The mesmerizing beat of a drum. The talent of Burleigh Drummond, the great Burleigh Drummond, 5-time Grammy-nominated founding member of the band Ambrosia, with which he still plays, and singer, songwriter, producer, and even more. Today on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, joining me at my table for a conversation about the man and his music is Burleigh Drummond. We'll be back with Mr. Drummond in a minute, but first, welcome. I am your host, Halli Casser-Jayne. Today, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is brought to you by Audible.com, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Get a free audiobook and 30-day trial today by visiting my website at hallicasserjayne.com and clicking on the Audible.com icon for your free book. Hey, what's more fun than a free book? And while you're there, explore our ads and support the show with a click on the links. We want to welcome our new partner, our favorite store, the finest in offering gourmet foods, Dean and DeLuca. And remember, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is always available online at hallicasserjayne.com and a host of venues, including Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, SoundCloud, the iHeartRadio network, and at our newest home on Google Play Music. Drummer, percussionist, producer, songwriter, and singer Burleigh Drummond is a founding member of the 5-time Grammy Award-nominated band Ambrosia. Formed in Southern California in 1970 as a quartet, along with Burleigh, the group's members included guitarist-vocalist David Pack, bassist-vocalist Joe Puerta, and keyboardist Christopher North. They chose the name Ambrosia to represent a vision of their music, all shades, textures, colors, and styles. Ambrosia had 5 top 40 hit singles on Warner Brothers Records, released between 1975 and 1980, including the top 5 hits, How Much I Feel, Biggest Part of Me, and You're the Only Woman. Drummond is the only drummer percussionist for the band, and with good reason. There is only one Burleigh Drummond. Let's talk. So Burleigh, still playing after all these years. Ambrosia's sound, then and now, distinctively rings with Burleigh Drummond's beats. Band members have come and gone. The group, like most, has had its ups and downs and some incarnations, but you've weathered the storms, and Ambrosia is so much at the heart of what you do. Talk to me about that. Can't let go of that. It's just you, huh?
Well, you know what's interesting about Ambrosia? It's like you could say, okay, some of the music that we're playing on stage today was composed in 1974, 75, and then we're all the way to doing current songs, new songs today. But it's still like those songs are still developing, and we're still learning how to play them, and with nuance, and instead of just barely getting through them, like we always wrote above our heads. So, or our abilities. So in the early days, we would, we had just raw energy that got us through. And now today, we still have the energy, but we're trying to bring some finesse to it, and we're still learning how to play our own music. So,
what does that mean? You wrote above your heads. You guys are all brilliant.
Oh well, thank you. That's very nice. But yeah, I mean, we wrote. I guess we had no fear back then. Like we would listen to our idols, the Beatles, Tony Williams, Miles Davis. We would listen to all this stuff, and we thought, oh yeah, okay. So when we would write something, our version or our take on what we had heard and experienced, and yeah, in some ways it was beyond our abilities at the time, but we just had our way of throwing ourselves into it that seemed to come off.
There is this too, as we age, as we mellow, as we mature, as we ripen, I like to say. I'm about the same age as you are. I think there is something true that after a while you have a little bit more understanding even of what you're singing, what you're playing, what you're saying. That does come with age, doesn't it?
I think so, and also, but I think it's you gain some and you lose some as you.
Oh, you think?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there is something to. I know I do a lot of recording, and the first time you play something, there's going to be something there that you're never going to get again. You'll get something else the second time you play it, and the third time you play it, and fourth time. And it might be better, but there's something that happens the first time you experience a piece of music and you perform it that never comes back,
Right.
Because it's the first time your mind, psyche, emotions, and everything is reacting.
Virginity.
Yeah, it's your virginity. You're losing your virginity for that song right there.
Couldn't help myself. Listen, let's start at the beginning. First, Burleigh, okay? Everybody says Halli. Where the hell did you get that name? What's that name? What's Burleigh? Everybody all the men in your family are Burleighs, yes?
Yes. I'm and it's, of course, I'm not a junior because we all had different middle names, but Burleigh is Scottish, means meadow by the mountain, and, a long history. Let's put it this way. I'm a perfect blend of Scottish nobility and Southern white trash. So that's what I am.
I don't know. I like to look like you and be white trash. Oh, my God. So listen, you're an Army brat, born in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. That's kind of weird because for those who don't know, tell us about Leavenworth.
Yes, it is a military prison. So my parents met after the war in Japan. And my mom was an Army nurse, and my dad was in the Army. He became a full colonel eventually, but so they met, and I was actually made in Japan. The rumor has it, and that I was made on Mount Fuji. My parents getting away, and I think my dad got busted. And anyway, I think I was born. They were sent to Fort Leavenworth for some reason, maybe that reason, and that's where I was born. So I was, born in America, but I was made in Japan.
So there's a lot to get to here, and I'm going to assume that not everybody knows the whole story, and you do it over and over again. But I do like the Ankara Turkey story for a multitude of reasons. But talk to me about the first time the music gods really talked to you. Okay.
Well, I was at a bazaar with my mom, and I'm not sure exactly. I was 6, maybe, something like that. And we were at a Turkish bazaar, a big bazaar, and I wandered away, and I wandered into the back of a tent where they were making the big brass plates, 6, 7 guys sitting in a circle, spinning the brass plates and hammering. They were hammering, the plate at the time to make it the end product. And there was just such a serendipity going on, and the rhythm that they have, and just the motion of the hammering and the synchronicity that they had, I was mesmerized. I mean, I was just like in a trance. And, I don't know, what seemed like minutes to me, I guess, was a couple hours. Of course, my mother was going crazy trying to find me, but that was my first kind of like sensory, I don't know, what do you call it, big taste of something. It wasn't music, but it was music to me. It was just a sensory experience that kind of led me into the whole world of the percussive arts.
So does this music thing run in your family?
Not really. I'm kind of like the first one to, venture out in my immediate family. My dad was an amateur banjo player, You know, he played with Bix Beiderbecke supposedly because that was his neighborhood.
All right, so that's something, right?
Something, yeah, but he wasn't, seeking a career in music by any means.
Well, that part I get, but those kind of talents usually do run in families. So I know a little bit about drummers, so let me tell you something about me. I worked with John Densmore.
Oh, yes.
For a long time. I helped him write his book, produced a documentary about those guys, kind of lived, breathed, and died them for a while.
Yeah.
So I know you guys. I know a little bit about how you percussion-type, drummer-type people kind of think, and it's different from the rest of us. You do go by the beat of your own drums. You're smiling. I see that smile on your face. But that's what I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about sound when you're walking down a street, when you're creating something. What's going on? What are you hearing that's different from what the rest of us hear? Have you ever tried to figure that out? Do you hear it in your head? Do you feel the beat in your heart? What?
Well, I think first of all due respect to you working with John Densmore. He's a huge influence, and man, what he's given to music is huge.
I don't know that you're almost as good as he, if not better. You're equal up there, buddy. So let's not go that route. You're being humble. Go ahead.
Well, I think the great thing about percussionists and drummers is that they hear everything as a potential for music. I mean, everything is music to them. A weird example. I was in a bathroom in New York, that was downstairs, and there was this little window leading to a alley that ran behind, and the wind was blowing through this alley, and there was something that had trapped some kind of piece of paper that was just flapping, in the wind, and it was the best drum solo I've ever heard in my life. I have spent years trying to recapture the rhythms I heard that paper make while it was flapping in the wind. It was just amazing. And things like rain falling and wind in trees, all that kind of stuff is like, it's music.
Well, it is. Well, it is music. So tell me this. So you capture it in the head, and I suspect at the same time a little bit in the heart. And is the fun of this for you to take it and get it from there through your fingers onto that drum thing, and make it repeat what you heard? Sure.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you take it in, and of course it comes out slightly different because it's you trying to process something you heard and make it your own and own it. So obviously you have your physical abilities, so it comes out with your taste, with your voice, which is going to be slightly modified. It's like even all the greats that they've all gotten from other greats and taking what observed somebody playing, like Tony Williams observed Philly Joe Jones playing, stole from him, but when he tried to play Philly Joe Jones, even though he could come very close to copying, it came out different, and so then it just keeps going, and that's, I think, the beauty of music and influences, is that it's always mutating and changing. Even though what we're attracted to, it's a bit like that in the schoolroom where they you tell this, somebody whispers a secret to somebody, and they have to go around the room whispering the same secret, and by the from where it started to where it ended up, it's like something totally different, but it all started in the same, it started in the same place.
So here's a question for you. So do you always like the translation that you make? Do you drive yourself crazy getting to the specifics of what you're hearing that you want to recreate? I mean, there are a lot of artists out there, and a lot of them never get anywhere in life because they're so hard on themselves that they're never satisfied with what they do, and they won't show anybody, or they won't do it publicly. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I understand that. I mean, I personally very, very rarely can listen to something that I've played that's been recorded. I mean, because I can just pick it apart to the nth degree. And I think that's the problem with musicians, is that, the more you do it, the more you're put into a critical position of analyzing what you've done, especially when you start producing and things like that, it's very easy to pick yourself apart. So I think you have to establish this thing where you let go. You do the best you can, but you have to let go at some point. And, I heard a great quote by Wayne Shorter. Terry Lynn Carrington, this drummer, was a fantastic drummer, was complaining to him that she didn't like hearing comments of how good she was when she, how well she played, when she knows she didn't play really that well that night. And, and Wayne Shorter said to her, well, maybe the audience knows something you don't.
That's true. Yeah.
I think that's very true because I think, first of all, who are you to tell the audience what they enjoyed? You can't tell them, oh no, you may have enjoyed it, but it wasn't good. You can't do that. So you're playing, and I think your joy is the fact that you got to play it and you did the best you can. Their joy is that they can appreciate it or not, but that's all you can do. You can't defeat yourself and cancel yourself out, or what's the point? You might as well not even.
Right. That's fascinating to me. Do you ever just want to turn the noise off, though? I mean, I have to assume you hear more sensitively than some of others are. After all the training, how many years have you been doing this? You must really have that little thing going much stronger than the rest of us. Do you just want to go, oh, shut up already?
No. I mean, there's times where you're burned out, sure,
yeah.
And you need to recuperate, but no. I mean, I'm still obsessed with it.
Oh, gosh.
Probably more so. I mean, probably more and more obsessed. I mean, my wife's a great musician as well, a great keyboard player, singer. And, a drummer has a certain obsession that most musicians, look at and go, oh, he's a drummer.
What does that mean?
Well, I think drummers are maybe a little more obsessed than a lot of musicians. I mean, and this is a pretty generic statement and a general statement, and it's probably not true. But, drummers can be very obsessed, as you probably have experienced.
I've been around you guys, like I said. I find it fascinating, though. To me, it's a thing of beauty.
Oh, thanks.
Well, it's true. It is. So listen to me. So you talked a little bit about some influences, and before we really go a little bit further, I want to talk about some more, because I was noticing that you were talking about a lot of new people in like a lot of the stuff that I was reading, and I was curious what, you grew up like I grew up at the time when Buddy Rich was still around, and Gene Krupa, we knew who all these people were. Are those people who are in the lexicon of having taught you something?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Buddy Rich, he wrote the book. Everybody today is still trying to figure out how he played what he played. So, he's like a technical textbook on, okay, this is how you can do it, but good luck,
Yeah, but I mean, I can you remember watching those guys when they were on Carson and stuff years and years and years ago, and you would just watch them? I can remember, like, mesmerized. Yeah,
I would scrimp and save to be able to go. I think I saw Buddy Rich about 8 times.
Really, lucky you.
Oh man, and and each time was its own unique setting and his unique mood at the time, and and how it came out on the drums. It could be nice. He could be in a good mood. He could be defiant. He could be just cranky as all get out. But man, he would just play. He would play out his mood, and it was. I've never seen somebody so expressive on an instrument.
Character, what a character, right? Oh my God, what a great character he was. So listen, let's talk a little bit about Ambrosia. If anybody doubts there's a thing called luck,
yeah,
you're the story for guess what? There's such a thing called luck. You guys met in they found you in some list that you may put your name.
Yeah. There was a little thing, a little storefront in Hollywood on I think it was on Sunset Boulevard back in the 70s and just the beginning of the 70s, 69, 70s, and I was down there for some reason taking a drum lesson or something, and there was this little storefront called Musicians Contact Service. And, for a little little postcard. You could put your name and your instrument and your phone number, and you tacked it on the wall. I think it cost $5 to do it. And I didn't think anything of it. I was, looking to join other musicians and play more. And I was in college at UCLA, and all of a sudden I got this call, and it was from Joe, Dave, and Chris from Ambrosia, and they had just gotten rid of their drummer, and they were looking for a new drummer, and I think it was my name that made them call. That
Burleigh.
Yeah. So they called, and they came over. My mom and I were living in Mar Vista, next to Venice in California, Southern California. And they came, and we just hung out, and I think we actually became a band in the first hour we were hanging out, just talking, just about influences, and it just got so excited. Everybody got so excited about that. We were sharing all these common, influences, and I had things that they had never heard of, and then we shared a lot of things, jazz and blues and pop, and then we got together and played, and I think the first song lasted literally about an hour and 45 minutes, and it just kept morphing and changing and going into different styles and grooves, and it was pretty obvious right from the beginning that there was something there.
So here's the deal. Over the years, you've probably played with God knows how many other musicians, right? And the band itself has certainly morphed over the years. So here's my question.
Yes.
Playing with those guys, that magic that occurred, which I'm sure you sensed immediately, right?
Yes.
Once in a lifetime thing that you get it that right? And then after that, you're always seeking to get back to that, or?
I wouldn't say it's a once in a lifetime. I think you can have those experiences many more times if you go out and seek them out. I've had other experiences like that, but none exactly like that. They're all different and unique in their own way. But yes, Ambrosia was one of a kind, and I think it still is. Just the fact that three of us still get together, are still the nucleus of what we do. It's still got that spark. I mean, and it's funny, it's easy to take it for granted because, I hear people all the time talk about the connection of the three of us on stage when we play. And, I have to catch myself for realizing that I'm taking it for granted, and we're not really realizing how magical it is when it does happen,
And the world, you talked a little bit about the audience and that you can't tell the audience what to do. But when you went out and you started to play out in public, and the audience started to respond, what were you thinking?
Well, I studied Persian music at UCLA, and my professor said something to me that has always it helped me. It helped me perform because it helped me first of all get rid of nerves and things like that. When he said that, in Persia, the whole concept of the performer is the performer has to go on a journey so that the audience can go on a journey with him or her. If the performer is nervous or cannot let go, it's not about playing perfectly or making mistakes or anything like that. It's just about transcending and traveling when you're performing. If the performer does not go, everybody is stuck at the station, So the performer has to go so the audience can take the trip with him. And realizing that has made me realize that it's really not about me playing perfectly or singing perfectly in tune or anything like that. It's about me taking an emotional journey so the audience can go with me.
So that performing thing really is a give and take between the performer and the audience the performer. I do think there is that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Nothing is more rewarding than realizing the audience is on the journey with you.
So they can turn you on if they're really with you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I don't think you get that kind of question a lot. I don't think that people talk to performers and say, how does that whole game play? It's not just a flat, we're on the stage, it's us, and you're out there. There is very much the give and the take for those of us who've done that kind of thing know. So listen to me about the sound. Could you be any more California? Now, first of all, this I love. You're from South Bay, which you guys call San Pedro. So another Halli gets into the middle of your life, which is I was on a television show that lasted about, I think, 5 episodes called the San Pedro Beach Bums. Oh, wow. Did you know that show?
I did not. I did not know that.
Go look that up. Yeah, we did that at Fox. Yeah, so that's how I know about San Pedro. Oh, wow. I heard about it once and never heard about it again after the show was canceled after 5 episodes. But that being said, Beach Boys, Mellow California, you really are the epitome of that time. Yes, agreed.
Well, I mean, that's very nice, yeah.
You don't think so? Oh. I'm giving you more than you think you deserve.
The Beach Boys were. The Beach Boys, definitely.
Well, I think you guys were, too.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, we are considered, or we have been labeled by some societies as, the West Coast sound. So, and yes, I think so, especially later on when we started having, the biggest part of me and How Much I Feel. So, we were kind of in line with Mike McDonald and Toto and bands like that kind of become known as the West Coast sound, especially in Europe. That's how they label us. When we first started, we were kind of treated as we were America's answer to Yes and King Crimson and Genesis. We were, our first 2 albums were much more progressive in nature. So we were kind of labeled as America's answer, to those English bands that were happening at the time.
But at your heart?
Oh, in our heart, we were just trying to be the Beatles. I mean, we are probably, as a lot of musicians, main influence, you can never deny it, it's coming from the Beatles. And in our respect, it was all about how diverse they were, how they could do, Yesterday and then a song called Rain I mean, they could go they went as far out as anybody in the experimental realm, and yet they could go as pop as anybody. I mean, they could define pop and they could define experimental. And it's kind of like we were just a band that thought that we could have that big a canvas to paint on. So that was our biggest influence.
I think that's so interesting that you just said that. And here's why. First of all, if you go back and you listen to the early stuff, it's very much different than what happened, as you progressed, obviously. But the world accepted you, as the later work. That was really where the hits started coming. And the point that you raised about the Beatles, though, is fascinating because they're one of the few groups that the executives, not only the executives, but the audience allowed to go into as many directions as possible. There's a formula there, but it's a very difficult formula to follow because the world just doesn't let artists get off the track that they're on.
Well, I think a lot of that, unfortunately, comes from the marketing, in order for a company to sell it.
Right.
Which is they really want you. They really want you to stay consistent in whatever whatever you're established at, so they can continue the same marketing plan. And if you have too many variables, it's hard for them to promote you. So
well, right, and that's good and that's bad. So here's the deal. Those earlier albums, let's see, the first one produced by Freddie Pirro was released in February 1975, and it spawned the top 20 chart single, Holding On to Yesterday, and people should go back if they haven't heard that to listen to that, as well as the Nice, Very Nice. And the album was nominated for a Grammy for Best Engineered Recording. Alan Parsons? Are you kidding me? You start out with Alan Parsons? I mean, talk about this luck thing. That's absurd.
Well, it's a funny story because we had a London Decca recording, the label that turned down the Beatles, but they had a recording engineer by the name of Gordon Perry, and it's a long story, but he met us at the Hollywood Bowl, and he became like our mentor. And we were finishing our first album, recording it, and we needed to mix it. And he brought in this album one day called Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And we listened to it, and, of course, we were just blown away. And who mixed it and who recorded it? Oh, this guy named Alan Parsons. So at Abbey Road Studios. So Gordon Perry gets on the phone, calls Abbey Road Studios, and hello, is hi. Can we speak with Alan Parsons? And he goes, speaking. And it's like, would you consider mixing an album here in America? And he's happened to be coming over for the Grammys for Dark Side of the Moon. And so he came, he heard the album, and he immediately said yes. And so he came back a couple of weeks later and mixed it. And then while he was mixing our first record, we played on his first album, which he started recording while he was with us.
Isn't that just ridiculous?
Incestuous. It's amazing.
No, but it's ridiculous when you think about that happening. I mean, that's just ridiculous to me. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. My guest today is drummer, percussionist, producer, singer, songwriter, and Ambrosia band member, Burleigh Drummond. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us. Hi, this is Halli Casser-Jayne. Are you enjoying the show? I hope so. And I hope that you'll tell your friends about it and help us grow our family. How can you help? That's easy. Share the link to the show with your friends or my show's player. And I would love it even more if you'd recommend they visit my website at hallicasserjayne.com. I look forward to seeing all of you there. And we're back on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, where I'm talking with my guest today, drummer, percussionist, producer, singer, songwriter, and Ambrosia band member, Burleigh Drummond. Let's continue the conversation. But listen to this, and this is something I do want to talk to you about. Kid from South Bay, San Pedro bum.
Yeah. Well, you were one, obviously.
I was one, you were one. So here's the deal, though. Can you ever be prepared for this success that just... How old were you when all this was going on?
So I was probably 21.
I mean, come on. How the heck did you deal with it? Were you prepared for it? Did you deal with it well? Did you not?
Well, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I mean, creatively, I guess, yes, because we all, created what we did and people liked it. Let's just say we all learned some hard lessons about, life and how to live well. And so for me personally, we did a run from 75 to, I think we stopped about 83, and then we took a break. And in that break is when my wife and I came together, and and I started a family, and that's when my life began.
That's a very interesting point, and I want to ask you this: maturing as an adult. Because we're not at 21.
Yeah, I can't wait to mature.
You too? We got the same problem, huh, buddy? But here's the thing. There is that, and I think that when you're very driven by music, when you're driven by what I do, whatever it is that's driving the force, it can sometimes get into the way of emotional maturity. I like that part of your story. I like the fact that you had to shut down one aspect in order to find the next and move on. And so the ending of that first stage of Ambrosia wasn't the best, was it? It wasn't the happiest.
No, it was pretty ugly, actually. The deals we had signed were horrible. I mean, we made no money being in Ambrosia, even though we had all these hits. I mean, the one guy that wrote the majority of the hits made a fair amount of money, but the band would have to record other people's albums to survive. And so we finally, rose up against the producer, manager, all the, who was doing a lot of conflict of interest there. We tried to, break away, and it just got ugly. It divided up the group, so the group had to stop, and then it took us about 6 years to reconvene and realize that it was about the music. That's why we initially did it, and that's why we still wanted to do it.
No, you go ahead. You're going to say something?
No, I mean we're still trying to work out problems that are caused by making money and division of who did this and who did what and who's getting credit for this. which is all, you think of it, it's all, it's not very spiritual stuff. So.
No, it's funny that you said that because I was thinking, I remember, the Doors, and I hate to go back to that, but except that they did do something that I thought was unique at the time. Think about it, which is it was all songs by the Doors.
That's beautiful.
Did you know about that? Most people don't.
I know Genesis did the same thing, and I totally, 100% respect that. I mean, because then you're asking for 100% participation from everyone.
Well, and no one person is ever a band.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Do I see a dog in the background here? This cute little puppy who is yawning away, who is so adorable. I got 3 sitting here in my office with me.
Yeah, this is Coda. He's the studio manager.
He's just adorable. If he had a round thing around his eye, he'd look like the little dog on Our Gang Comedy.
Right. Yeah.
He's really cute. Sorry that's why I don't like to have the cameras going when I'm recording. I got that eye kind of thing. But yeah, I thought that was interesting that it worked out. It didn't work out because with the Doors, even though that's how it went down with the music.
Right.
What you saw happen was outside forces come in and they start to play games with, the lead singer. He's more important than this one. So, being in a musical group, that's maybe one of the toughest things that there is as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've had a lot of you guys on the show talking about just this kind of thing. Your friend Wayne Nelson, he and I have had long, storied conversations on this subject.
I know.
Yeah, right. They were another band that had a problem. Now, here's something I want to talk to you about, okay, because I was nosing around about you. Here's some place where I think you're different than other musicians. And I think you've just showed us that in the first 30-something minutes of this conversation. You are an intellectual. Well, you goofy. Don't give me that laugh like I don't want you.
Well, I appreciate that, but, I'm...
You're a thinking man.
I play and write and record with guys that challenge me. I mean that are my teachers. Like one in particular, Mighty Mo Rogers, a blues artist I play with, is perhaps the most learned man I've ever been around. You go to the Louvre with him in Paris, and he'll correct the guides, that are showing you around. I mean, and Joe Puerta and Ambrosia. Amazing mind, amazing wit, So I appreciate your comment, but I think it is. I think rock and roll does have its intellectuals for sure.
But I think it's fascinating because I think it shows up in the music.
Oh well, yes. I would have to say that about Ambrosia is that it always starts with a song. It's got a song and a melody. And it's about something, and then, whatever orchestration happens is for the benefit of the song. So we were never a band that played a lot of notes for notes' sake. We weren't like, hey, look how fast I can play. I mean, it all related to the message.
So you played with some of the best and the brightest. I can say best and brightest now. Most fun ever had on stage, somebody outside of who came in to play with you.
Well, I've always enjoyed this artist, Mighty Mo Rogers, and for those who haven't heard of him, or you have to experience Mighty Mo Rogers. He's probably one of the most creative writers, performers, and his message is beyond. It's as deep as you can possibly go. And what I loved about him was, I would play all the blues festivals in Europe with him, and produced a couple of his records and played on all his records, but he'll improvise literally a good 50% of his show on the spot. So it's constant creation. You're always creating on the spot to his creation of text, and you're supplying rhythms to back up his text and prompt his text and push him. And I just love that. It's like the qualities of jazz improvisation in a blues format, and it's fantastic.
So, if it hadn't been Ambrosia and that California sound, and we had just put you out there alone, and I know you studied all of these ethnic sounds.
Yeah.
What would be the song you'd want. I start the show, by the way, with your drumming and the African beat.
Oh.
Because I love that, and I think that is very much you. What would you do? What would be the sound that you'd want outside of that you could have created, not with your wife, not with any of the, just Burleigh?
I think it probably would have been a little more esoteric and a little more world beatish than I think I contributed myself to the people I worked with and added my influence, but I don't think I think that was always became a combination or a melting pot of sound. So I think mine probably would have been a little more outside and probably a little more outrageous.
You keep drumsticks on your desk?
I keep them everywhere, but my son, who's a drummer as well, has stolen my pair from this desk.
Because I was going to say, could you just give me a beat?
Oh, sure.
I want a beat. Those hands, darling, those hands. Give me those hands. I want your hands. That just see, like you could just do that. That's scary. That's just damn scary to me. That totally is. So I want to go on to something else now. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the breakup. Now I want to talk about the guys.
Sure.
You know, there's a brotherhood that goes on in this kind of thing. Yes. And you know, brothers you're an only child, but brothers and sisters can be the worst.
Well, you want to beat the you know what out.
And that's absolutely the truth. So it didn't end on a happy note in the old days. You know, you've made some you've reconciled on some levels. I want to talk to you about this, and I want to ask you. I'm going to say their name, and I want one word.
Okay.
David Pack.
Complicated.
You laughed. You made me laugh. Joe Puerta?
Processing.
Oh, interesting. Christopher North?
Best intentions.
Let's try this one. Burleigh Drummond.
A combination of all three.
That's interesting. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, maybe, right? I move on. You mentioned, let's talk spirituality, faith. Interesting. Very strong Catholic background, right?
Yes.
Your parents got divorced, though.
Yes. Well, my dad was basically an agnostic. My mom didn't really have a religion per se, you know, a denomination. They basically wanted me to be Catholic so I could go through the Catholic school system because they thought that was a better school system. So I was pretty much on my own, you know, like, okay, you got to go, you know, and it was good. In a lot of ways, it was great. I'm not a practicing Catholic now, but it's a funny thing because I played this Catholic Liturgical Congress out here, which is 5 days at the Anaheim Convention Center, you know, filled to the rafters, Catholics all over the world. And all Catholic artists all over the world, and then I played it for a lot of Christian churches, and I've played a lot for Jewish performances. I think everybody knows that I'm not their particular denomination per se, but they all seem to feel like I'm sensitive to their desire to and. I feel like just I don't want to call it talent, but my desire to play drums or to play music is God's way of giving me a way to pray to Him. So when I do these events and I play at church every weekend, playing drums is the best way I know how to pray, and So it's
a spiritual experience for you as much as it's anything else.
In that context, yes.
Wow.
You know, I think I need to bring that context more to, the Ambrosia show or whatever, or whatever commercial enterprise I am in. because it has such a deep feeling and meaning when it's in that other context, you know.
You were in the seminary?
I thought about it.
Really?
I never went. I was very close to doing it, you know, but it was the Gene Krupa story. I couldn't get the drums out of my head.
I could just see it now, right? Starting every sermon with the old drum beating. There you go kind of thing. When you met your wife,
yes,
and it all seemed to come together, and nosing around on the two of you, I have to say, first of all, let's say Mary Harris, who in her own right, quite a lady, quite a career.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, she's worked with Buffett. She's worked with Pink Floyd.
Stanley Clarke. She did Animal Logic, which was like the break off of the Police, you know. So, yeah, she's something else.
I wish we could get her on here right now so I could ask her about you. But here's the deal. Something very spiritual is clearly going on in that marriage, in that musical relationship, in the familial with your kids. Yeah.
Well, our kids are both musicians. My son has a new band called the Bird Dogs, which are out there playing. They're touring now, and it happened so fast. They're doing the music of the Everly Brothers, and it's just taking off like gangbusters. Wow. I mean, he's touring more than I am this year, and it just started like 6 months ago. So, and my daughter's at USC, and she is one of the most talented singer-songwriters, and you know, amazing. I mean, I'm a fan of them. I think probably more than they are of me, you know. So, yeah, they grew up with it. My wife, and that's my wife, though. My wife. I mean, my wife really brought music into the home, you know. So she's the center of the home, and you know, teaching our kids piano, and you know. All those things that kind of led to us being a family band, and all those things, I give my wife all the credit. So,
are you as happy as you seem?
Yes, I am.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's so great.
I mean, I put on an act of being grumpy.
Don't. I mean, no. I mean, in this crazy world in which we live, right?
Yes.
You know, a family plays together, stays together. Most families don't stay together, and certainly don't play together. So that's the secret here? What?
Well, you know, I'm an only child.
I know.
So I didn't really have that big family experience. My parents broke up. I lived with my mom. You know, she had her troubles, so it was I spent an enormous amount of time growing up alone. So when I met my wife and then our family began and all that, I mean, my wife saved my life. So, you know, I owe her my life.
Wow. How bad was it that she saved your life?
Well, you know, I could get pretty out, and she brought me back off the ledge. So, you know.
That's a powerful woman.
Yeah, she's incredible. Yeah.
But you're a pretty incredible guy, it seems.
Well, I guess given the chance, I can do some good things. But you know, you have to be here to do good things. So.
I hear you, buddy. So listen to me. So you're out touring again with Ambrosia. You've got Tim Drum.
Tin Drum is a little bit on hold. Tin Drum is. I mean, all due respect to Ambrosia, I love Ambrosia, but Tin Drum is a little more exciting for me, just because you know it's less of music by committee. It's just my wife and I, so we have a little more freedom. And not that Ambrosia is limiting. It's not at all. But you know, 6 people have to like what you're doing, you know, and in Tin Drum only 2 do.
And you guys seem to see eye to eye and hear ear to ear, right?
And even with my wife and I too, even if we don't totally, you know, are ecstatic about what the other's doing, if that person really wants to do it, it's understood they get to do it. So you know, you got to have freedom of voice, you know.
And you create best in freedom. I want to ask you about the music industry. God knows there's nothing anybody can do. You got to go with the flow. This is the way it is. It certainly has changed on enormous amount of levels. But I want to talk to you about the quality of music that's being produced today and what your thoughts are on that. And asking a drummer that question, I think is a little different than asking other people that question. I'll tell you why after you give me your answer. I think that. Talk to me.
Okay, so I think there are brilliant writers out there today, and there's brilliant music being made in all genres. I think there's much more music being made today because everybody can make it. I mean, it's so easy to buy a laptop or any kind of recording device and put together samples and loops and as opposed to when you had to create that, you had to actually play an instrument to write to some degree. I think what's happened in the actual process of recording the music and I think back in the day, or the 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s, and you had to go for a performance. And those performances were not always perfect, and you had to do them as a band to create, to get a band performance typically. So, somebody like Aretha or any of those great singers, they weren't perfect, but they were so good at what they did that you fell in love with what they did because you heard their personalities, and you even their imperfections became endearing to you. I think today with the ability to cleanse or scrub everything squeaky clean and make it perfect, make every singer perfectly on pitch, make every drummer perfectly in time, make every instrument perfectly on the beat, all that. I think the first time you listen to something like that and you're kind of impressed and all that, but you're not endeared to it because there was no human imperfection to hang on to. It was just this perfect performance.
Now, see, I think that's interesting. Well, the place that I have trouble with music today is that I can't even say the name of your songs without lilting into the sound, the music, the musicality of it.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's probably some memories that are attached to you probably go back to.
No, it's because it was that good. It was just that good. There are songs today. I mean, I can't even remember the name of them 2 seconds after I hear them, unless they're by some of the old guard. The reason I said as far as a drummer is concerned, because when I rap is beat music, like drumming, to me.
Well, I mean, I think there is great rap, but I think as Mighty Mo Rogers pointed out to me, that rap really was came from the streets where it was basically the newspaper. It was the newspaper being recited every day about what happened in the neighborhood. And that was the real origins of rap as I know it. And so, then anything like that becomes attractive becomes all of a sudden people see it about making it a commodity, or how can we sell this? So then, of course, it starts becoming standardized and codified into a form. So it's gone from now, in essence, being a true art form into a product. And usually when that happens, you lose something.
I'm not sure it's music.
Well, okay. I think it is. Maybe you don't want to qualify it as music, but it's an art form.
Well, art is fine. Art's commendable in all of its incarnations. I don't know. I long for the day when you got into the car and you turned on the radio and you heard something and all the time that you wanted to hear again and again and again and wanted to sing again and again along with. And I just somehow that is missing. I think your point is well taken that it's all been cleaned up too much and there's nothing real there anymore. It's staged. Or whatever. I think that's valid. But I also think that there's a problem in maybe a lack of training in a lot of these musicians, whereas you certainly were trained and a lot of, the guys from your generation were. Maybe that's something that's lacking right now because, the first thing that's been cut out of schools and all of this financial gizmo, are the arts.
I mean, again, Mighty Mo Rogers pointed out to me is that, back in the day when, Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye and those kind of artists were coming through the school system, the public school system, they had music. They had to learn music. Right. Everybody had to learn an instrument and take music. Music was part of the curriculum, and now you take that out. So that hasn't been there for a while, but still, you can't take the desire to create out of, young people. So what happens? They don't have instruments, so one kid becomes the beatbox and one becomes the rapper. They're still going to create the only way they have, the only way they can. That's the only instruments they have. So you get what you pay for.
Like I said, love that head of yours.
I have to give that to Mighty Mo Rogers because he's.
Well, you did it well. So, last question: what's there still left for you to do?
Oh, everything.
Give me. Talk to me.
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, I'm got a whole new idea. I'm collaborating with Luis Conte, my son, and Mighty Mo Rogers on we're tracing the rhythms of Africa and how they traveled throughout the world, and we're trying to write some music that shows how the travel where it started and how it influenced the world and where it ended up and how it mutated and changed. And so that's just one small project, 10 drums, doing new stuff. My family band, that's probably the most exciting thing for me. My daughter, my son, my wife and I, we're trying to wait for my granddaughter who's 8 months. We have a little wait for her to be in the band, but we're excited about doing some stuff. And of course, Ambrosia, is still playing. We got a lot of dates this year, so we're real excited.
I've been speaking with Burleigh Drummond, drummer, percussionist, producer, songwriter, and singer, and founding member of Ambrosia. For more information on Burleigh and Ambrosia, visit ambrosialive.net and follow Burleigh on Facebook at Burleigh Drummond 1. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. Associate producer, Suzanne Probst. Music by Tony Rosales Jazz. Visit HalliCasserJayne.com.